That does not actually sound healthy. Well, a Huey trailing a suction hose. That smoke plume out there has been coming from Dundee and deep water out over there. 6 Mile Road, 9 Mile Road, Morven Road. Since, I don't know, probably about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I was fairly busy at the time because I was just receiving my second load of water for the day, 12 tonnes per load. So on the right side, I'm now sitting on, I think we squeezed 27,000 litres into the brand new tank. The prism frame has got 6,000 litres in it. The buoy wall's got 5,000 litres in it. So yeah, I'm sitting on 36,000 litres. And then I went over and I transferred water from my neighbour's bore tank, his active bore tank, the one that he feeds or waters his cattle and sheep with, into his number 2 tank, the spare tank, which I was planning on relying on to pump from if I needed that extra 22,000, if 36,000 wasn't enough. And I was using the yellow RATO pump, the one which says the engine's 7 horsepower, and the data plate on the pump housing says it has a 5 horsepower engine, and the pump housing has big inlet and outlet pipes, but it's got a data plate that says 5 horsepower. And there was a bit of argy-bargy going on between the bloke who sold it to me and his paperwork and people who sold it to him. And the upshot was that the dealer said, no, it's very definitely a 7 horsepower engine and we're just going to not put the data plate on the pump. And today, whereas I'm used to, with a 5 horsepower pump, 100 litres per hour going through a 25mm pipe, we're actually going through a 32mm pipe, but it comes out through a 25mm Storts fitting, so 100 litres a minute from a 5 horsepower pump. I was used to about 120, 140 litres per minute through the 6.5 horsepower pump. I went down there and I connected the new RATO pump to 4 metres of 25mm hose, and I didn't have a nozzle on it. I just had a ball valve. And golly gosh gee darn shucks, after I had filled the left-hand bore tank, the spare tank, absolutely chock full, there I was standing on the ladder, and I closed the ball valve. And then, as soon as I closed the ball valve on the 7 horsepower motor, working on the pump that's placarded for 5 horsepower, those of you who've been watching my channel for a while will remember when this thing was left full of water during a really cold winter's night and it cracked, and it cost me, I don't know, I think it might have been $170, 120 something, but I got it welded up. And it broke because some idiot left it full of water and then let it freeze. My fault, no problem. Not the manufacturer's fault. So here we see that I've been draining the fuel out of it, which is a procedure which is necessary because that is what happened as soon... Oh, Jesus, what a beautiful job it's done. That can't even be welded. As soon as I shut off the hose that was attached to this, the other end of the hose got shut off. This thing had been pumping for 10 minutes, and during 10 minutes it transferred at full power, because I was doing a full power test, because I suspected that that engine actually might be 7 horsepower, and I thought maybe I might want to put a 50mm inlet on there, and maybe I might want to put a 40mm outlet on there, going straight onto the 50mm new improved system that's currently waiting installation. So just to give myself some sort of an idea of it, today, after filling that full as a goog, probably 5,500 litres in it, and filling this one full as a goog, short for googie egg if you don't understand Australian slang vernacular. And yeah, it shows it could put up with another 200 litres on that side, maybe 300 litres. So yeah, it's not quite 6,000 litres, it's probably 5,800. But yeah, essentially 6,000, 5,500, and slightly more than 25,000, because this, having done some measurements and some allegations, this is 25,000 to here, and at the moment it's currently filled to here. So this might be all the way up to here, right to the bottom of the short row fittings. Could be 27,000 litres. I don't know. I'm happy. For somebody who used to think he was well off if he had 16,000 litres in the 3 buoy walls, or the 2 buoy walls and the prism wall, to have something like 37 or 38,000 litres on the front lawn ready to deploy, that's peace of mind. And just think, I could have spent my money on insurance premiums, and at the end of every year I would have had to renew and pay a new premium, and I wouldn't have any bloody fire hoses at all whatsoever. Even if I am having pump problems, I'm still a bloody sight better off than I would otherwise be if I just had an insurance policy. Haha, warbles on a lot of YouTube. So anyway, when the water car, by the way, I still haven't ridden that because I'm waiting for the jacket and the gauntlets. What's the point in being prepared to pay $300 for a jacket that you can skate down the road and not get gravel rash on, if you then get really impetuous and you ride the bloody bike before you get the jacket? My luck, that's when I would fall off. Skate up the road on me bum, get lots of gravel rash, and the jacket would turn up the next day. Negative sympathetic magic. I don't ride the bike till I get the jacket, and then I never fall off, and the jacket's a waste of money. Yeah, as I was saying before, I was sort of sidetracked by the side of the electric motorcycle. When the water carter showed up with the second 12,000 litre load, he said, "Oh, have you seen the fire?" I said, "What fire?" He said, "Over on the other side of your neighbour's house." Said, "Jesus Christ." So I grabbed my binoculars and I grabbed my compass and I went down to my front gate and I took some bearings and I had a look through the binoculars and I could see 3 different fires. So I rang up AAO and I got put through to fire control at Glen Innes, and I told them where I was and what bearing I was looking on. I said, "I can see 3 fires." And they said, "Yeah, we've got one at Dundee, we've got one at Deepwater, and we've got one on the other side to the east of Deepwater." One on 6 Mile Road, one on 9 Mile Road, one on Morven Road. So, unless there was a lightning strike in yesterday's rain, because we did have a little bee's dick worth of rain. Was it yesterday or the day before? Thursday. Yesterday was Friday. Yeah, Friday morning, very early. I got 1.7 millimetres here, 1.4 millimetres in 2 0.7 millimetre sections. Bugger all rain. It is entirely possible that a thunderstorm has gone along there and it's gone crack, boom, crack, boom, crack, boom, and it's lit up smouldering little fires that didn't get a go-ahead until about midday, because it was very, very cold here this morning, like 6-7 degrees overnight minimum, and that little bit of rain yesterday, that could have been 3 lightning strikes. It could also have been some arsehole come out of Deepwater or Dundee and they've gone out along that road, lit a fire, gone along that road, lit a fire, gone along that road and lit a fire. I very much hope that it wasn't anybody out there lighting fires, because if somebody starts lighting fires, we're fucked. Just completely ratchet fucked. The only way we're going to get through this season is if everybody does the right thing. I'm doing my best to fireproof my place. And those of you familiar with the channel, who might recall what this sort of area used to look like, may be somewhat surprised to see how ruthless Warbles on a lot has been withstanding living trees and a chainsaw, because there's not a whole lot of point in having a sprinkler up on top of the shipping container to keep the darling dotard household goods safe and secure if you got Melaleuca alternifolia full of volatile oils growing right up against the edge of the shipping container that you're trying to sprinkle water on and keep safe. I'll put up with the box tree, but all this other shit, it's got to go. That's some that wouldn't fit on the trailer on Friday. And as I suspected, it's really, really difficult to get 340 kilograms onto my trailer. Yeah, that's all got to go. I think I'll keep the other stuff out there as wind turbulators to try and save the tent, because the fly's getting old. There's a new hole to join that one that I patched, and that one that I patched, and that one that I didn't, on the grounds that, well, the fly's just about ready to be replaced, and we do have a spare fly. Why waste money on sticky tape, eh? So yeah, having vegetation to spare the tent the worst of the wind has to be balanced against getting rid of the vegetation in order to spare the tent the combustion process as the vegetation goes off. But wouldn't this be a shithouse sort of a bushfire fuel bomb if I had failed to burn off over the past 3 months? It wouldn't be terrible if I hadn't finally figured out that I can take shit like that to the dump and pay the council $14 for anything up to half a tonne, and then they hang on to it. If they let it catch fire, they get a $10,000 fine. What a bargain. They let me take that sort of shit in there and give it to them. And every time I take 3 trailer loads to town, that's about the same price as a bottle of scotch, so I don't drink that. Hey, it's a healthy response to global warming, isn't it? A healthy response to global warming. Yes. And every now and then we leave a token wind turbulator, just so that the wind doesn't howl unobstructed through the gap. Bloody lot to think about with this adapting to global warming. It's really sad that I've been voting against global warming for 43 years and I've lost every bloody election I ever voted in, except when Carol Sparks, aka Squirrel, was standing for mayor in Glen Innes. When she was standing for mayor, I voted green and I was on the winning side. Anyway, that's today's fire plan update. 3 fires out there. By the look of the horizon, they got them all under control. They got them all under control. And yeah, I've got nearly 40,000 litres on my front lawn. And these RATO pumps are not able to cope with a 7 horsepower engine, 212cc 7.0, and the pump, it says engine power kilowatts at revs per minute 3.8 kilowatts, which is 5 horsepower, 3,600. Engine torque 11.5 Newton meters per minute. Yeah. And on here, 212cc engine displacement, and that one doesn't tell you on it how much power it makes. So I'm thinking maybe this is a 7 horsepower engine and this is a 5 horsepower pump. When Chrissy of the Warbles On A Lot Variety gave this full herb so we could see how much water it could pump, and it was pumping 200 litres a minute, and then switched off the other end of this hose before I could climb down the ladder and shut the engine off. In fact, I might have got down and actually shut that off and then it went bang. I know I was in a hell of a hurry because there was a slight dribbly leak at the other end of the hose, but yeah, I figured I could shut that off before I got to there, and before I got anywhere near the throttle, it just went crack and a flood of water came out. So I think it's a 5 horsepower pump with a 7 horsepower engine. And as it happens, this is the same base plate, gasket size and hole spacing and diameters. That's the same. And those in there mounting the pump to the engine are the same. All those fittings on the LiFan, which is 6.5 reliable horsepower, and I can leave this thing running at full power against stock valves, and I have done even after it's been welded. You can leave that running like that full power for 15 minutes while you walk from the bottom of the bloody the Aquarius project hose 450 metres out that way where you've set the pump up, and you can walk up here for 15 minutes while the pump's running at the other end and it doesn't bust the pump. And I've got another one of those LiFan pumps with a totally buggered engine because it was underwater, and I didn't notice for a couple of months that it had been underwater, but it's got a pristine pump. I think the bloke who sold me that other bastard of a thing, he's going to get presented with the 7 horsepower engine and the pump that was on the 6.5 horsepower engine, and he's going to get asked to put the pump like that one and take those fittings off because they're 30 and 30s, and you can put the water pump that can cope with 6.5 horsepower on the engine that we suspect is 7 horsepower, and we'll sit can what I think is a 5 horsepower pump, and the casing couldn't cope with the pressures generated by the engine, and we'll take these plates with the 50mm and the 40mm outputs off, and we'll put them on the pump that can cope with 6.5 horsepower, feed the engine that can put out 7 horsepower, and then I'll run 50mm inlet and 40mm outlet going into 50mm, aka 2-inch green line rural poly pipe. 50mm 2-inch, not much bloody difference, but I reckon if I can get a 7 horsepower engine that can cope with 6.5 horsepower, sucking through a 50mm hose instead of a 38mm hose, blowing out through a 40mm outlet instead of a 30mm outlet, and going from the 40mm outlet into the 2-inch rural poly, then I'm going to have a lot better chance of being able to run 2 25mm sprinklers on towers and still be able to run one, either a 20mm sprinkler on the end of a long hose, or I run 2 towers and 1 fire hose. And those fire hoses, 25mm safety hoses, have both got Storts fittings at both ends. So if I really need to, I can take the hose off this, leave that there charged up, ready to go as an absolute bloody emergency service, and I can pull that 32-metre safety hose with Storts fittings, and I can put it on the end of the 36-metre safety hose over there. I should be able to get around nearly anywhere on the perimeter once I get the 2-inch green line network all put together, because it's going to take 7 standpipes with Storts fittings, 25mm Storts fittings and ball valves out around the whole defended perimeter. So we should have a wet dome over there with a tower between the tent and the shipping container. Once I've got the tower up there with a 25mm sprinkler, I'll pull that 20mm sprinkler off the shipping container because it'll become unnecessary. And I've got 2 more of those sleds in the pipeline. And I'm hoping that the bloke who sold me this thing will do the pump conversion as outlined earlier in this video. More or less as a shit, oh dear, I'm sorry I sold you a piece of turd, because otherwise I'm going to have to do a warranty claim and get another one which is also going to be a piece of turd. But I can probably work around that. If I get another one that's a piece of turd, I will put one of those pressure relief valves on there. And then anytime the pressure rises in the pump, it'll just let the pressure off. But I think I like the engine, and I like the other pump, and I like those inlets and outlets, and I don't think I want to get another one that's going to blow up on its own. So anyway, that's Monday's conundrum. And tomorrow, instead of going to the bloody deep water dump, I'm going to be doing is playing with this, which used to be my transfer pump from the bore tanks. It is a 5 horsepower pump. That's how I know the figures on a 5 horsepower pump, because I've bloody got one. And it currently has no compression, and it turns over really easy. And I think what's happened is when it was over there at the bore for 2 or 3 years unused because we had La Ninas instead of an El Nino, it stopped with an exhaust valve or an inlet valve open. I'm thinking the exhaust valve. And then a wasp or something has gone in through the exhaust port, and it's gone in and it's built itself a nest underneath the open exhaust valve, and it's wedging the exhaust valve open. And I'm hoping I can just pull that rocker cover off, tap with a hammer, flush backwards through the exhaust port after I've taken the exhaust off, wash the mud out, and then it'll turn over and probably run. I don't know, but that's been the plan, and that's why it's been just sort of sitting there. But I don't know whether you can see in there. Take my word for it, there's a lot of mud and shit in there. Anyway, I hope to get that thing going tomorrow and put it down at the bore so that I can at least get access to the 22,000 litres that I've just topped up his spare tank with. It's a never-ending pastime, trying to fireproof your lawn locker in the middle of a forest that's dying of thirst because global warming's a pain in the arse. Warbles on a lot to YouTube. Not that I'm a lunatic. I just sit out here in the forest talking to myself in the moonlight. Isn't that right? Ciao.